All right, welcome back to the Flicker Podcast. We are doing our third episode. We're going to continue on the Bible prophecy theme, and today we're going to get into the book of Enoch. But my name is Dave. This is Wally.
Hey, Wally.
And we are going to go over some of the prophetic visions that Enoch saw. The Bible itself gets into some very interesting topics, but it just glosses over them. The book of Enoch actually goes into detail into fallen angels, into what almost seems like a spaceship of heaven, the way he describes it. We're going to get into that. And angel and human hybrids. So stay tuned for this. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and drop us a comment in the comment section below. This one is going to be interesting. We're going to start off, this is when Enoch had a vision, and then it gets into the wild description of the place he actually ends up. Okay, this is in the book of Enoch, I think it's chapter 14, verses 8 through 18, but we're going to take it verse by verse, or couple verse by couple verse. All right, it says, "Behold, in the vision, clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me. And the course of the stars and the lightning sped and hastened me, and the winds in the vision caused me to fly and lifted me upward and bore me into heaven. And I went in till drew nigh to the wall, which is built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire, and it began to affright me."
That would be frightening.
Yeah, that's some wild stuff.
Tongues of fire, what I think of tongues of fire, it sounds like.
Well, hang on. Before we get to tongues of fire, let's start in the beginning and work our way down.
Okay.
So the clouds invited me, and a mist summoned me. The clouds, how do the clouds invite you? The way I see this is like all of a sudden the clouds like maybe started swirling like looking from the bottom of where a tornado is starting up to create like a vortex, right? To pull you, because it says the winds pulled him up. That's almost what it sounds like.
Well, a mist would almost be like a cloud, right? So it's almost like the clouds are doing kind of what you're talking about, where they're moving around or we're getting closer to him, and then he's amongst the mix, and the clouds kind of come down and grab him.
Right. And then it says he was sped upwards. What does it say? Of course, of the stars, sped upwards, and the winds of the vision caused me to lift upwards. The other thing he says here is lightning. Stars, the course of the stars and the lightnings sped and hastened me. That's almost like electricity. Like basically there's some sort of electricity involved.
He probably felt it in the air, right? People describe feeling higher charges or whatever. He probably felt lightning and maybe saw lightning. Maybe there was lightning of some sort.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder if he was just straight up pulled up in a portal.
Yeah.
Or something. And that's definitely how he envisions it. You know,
he was like kind of snatched up.
Yeah.
By the air, the clouds, and a little bit of lightning.
Yeah, because one thing you got to remember here is that Enoch knows nothing of technology at all. He's never seen sci-fi movies where they have portals that can maybe be enclosed in a circle and it looks like spinning clouds, but also there's like electric rays. That's kind of like how portals are portrayed, sort of, unless it's just like the top of water. But he's never seen anything like that, so he has no reference to today's time like we do to describe it how it might have actually been.
Then he's flying and he's being lifted upward, bore me into heaven, what he refers to as heaven, and I drew to a wall which is built of crystals and surrounded by tongues of fire.
Yeah, and he got scared, so he was pulled through this portal, and on the other side of the portal, I don't know what tongues of fire are, aside from maybe like spotlights. Like if there's a big show somewhere and out front they have spotlights going, you know? But otherwise, what would tongues of fire be?
Well, to me, I see a rocket engine, like propulsion engine would be like literally look like a tongue of fire.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up and he landed at this huge wall built of crystals surrounded by fire jets.
The walls of the house.
So, all right, real quick before we go forward, I almost envision a crystal wall, and at the base of it are fire jets.
Okay.
Like this thing is like security. like purposes of security. Like instead of having a moat, it's got fire jets. I mean, who knows? But that's how I envision it.
I mean, if you're Enoch and you're coming from Earth way back, it would be hard to describe a lot of this stuff. So you got to use your imagination a little bit. But a tongue of fire could be, I mean, if you saw today's telephones showing images, you might describe that as a tongue of fire.
Also, a tongue of fire could just be like a very commanding voice.
And it could be that too. Because tongue refers to almost speaking too.
Right.
When they talk about tongues.
So it could have been some sort of voice as well.
Yeah.
Because they call it tongues, they often refer to the life and death is in the power of the tongue, which always refers to speaking. Could be that.
So a speaking light almost.
Yeah.
So and then that video screens, who knows?
Right. Yeah. All right, let's keep moving here. Tongues of fire. And then he got scared. And then it says, and I went into the tongues of, wait a minute here. It says, and I went into the tongues of fire and drew nigh to a large house, which was built of crystals. And the walls of the house were like tessellated floor of crystals. And its groundwork was 11 crystals. And its ceiling was like the path of the stars and the lightnings. And between them were fiery cherubim. And their heaven was clear as water.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, because it says he went into the tongues of fire. He went into those tongues of fire.
Tessellated.
Which brought him to a house of built crystals, and the walls of the house were like tessellated, floor made of crystals. What exactly?
I'm going to look at tessellated right now because I'm not sure what that is.
So these tongues are some sort of door or perhaps another portal of fire, because he went into them, and then he came to this crystal house, which sounds amazing. And its groundwork was 11. Oh, sorry, that's the verse. So it doesn't say 11. And its groundwork was of crystal.
Tessellated is denoting or characterized by a pattern of repeated shapes, especially polygons that fit together closely without gaps or overlaps.
You have a picture of it there? Can you just click images?
To me, that sounds like a beehive, like almost like honeycomb structures. Different versions of a polygon.
Well, hang on. Do you have the Google? You clicked images and it shows you a bunch of images of Tesla. Show the camera. Closer. Okay. So it's kind of like tiled.
Tiled, definitely tiled.
Tessellated could just mean tiled. So basically, this house has a groundwork, it says, of crystal tiles. I've never seen a crystal tile, but I bet you that looks pretty cool. Essentially clear glass tiles, right? The ceiling is crazy though. Its ceiling was like a path of stars, and the lightnings, and between them were fiery cherubim, and their heavens was clear as water. So the ceiling was like a path of stars and lightning. All right, so real quick, a path of stars makes me think if it's going to be a path of a star, it's like a shooting star.
Mm-hmm. Well, what the image that comes to my mind is he's in this room, house, ship, whatever it is, and the ceiling is glass, and they're hauling through space, right? And you got that classic Star Wars light speed situation, and you're seeing the stars bend. Some of them are bending, some of them are
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's what comes to my mind.
He's looking through a window.
Large one. The whole ceiling is kind of a window.
Yeah. It's like a domed, clear dome. That does sound like a spaceship.
It does.
I wonder if the crystal part is just like, I almost wonder if the crystal is like a shiny metal or something.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Like he just calls that crystal.
Yeah.
Because it's like a super shiny metal. Okay. That's pretty solid evidence, dude.
There's a few things going on here that really make it feel like he's literally in a spaceship of some way, shape, or form.
Which on its own is an interesting thought that God has a spaceship. Okay, so, and that their heaven was clear as water. So, okay, that's a little bit interesting because he says the ceiling was the path of lightning and stars, and fiery cherubims between them, which is a little, I don't know how to relate that to what it could be today, unless it's like a borrowed light or something.
What I feel like clear as water when he says that, to me, it's like he's describing transparency. So there were aspects of this heaven that were transparent walls, ceilings, that he's relaying being able to see through.
Oh, and between the lightning and the stars. So if you're flying at light speed, everybody knows that classical image,
Yep.
of all the lights coming at you.
Yep.
Perhaps there's like, they're closer to one and it's like a sun and it's super bright because he says between them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
There's a few things going on here that repeated over that just, it's like a common sense thing, That's why I'm convinced he's in some sort of flying spaceship vessel.
That is definitely what it seems like.
So there's cherubim in the skies?
That's what it seems like. But
Okay.
between the stars and whatever he's calling lightning, he's seeing something else up there that he says is cherubim. But I picture like it's like maybe like it's a gigantic star or something.
Right.
Maybe it's a nebula.
Okay.
But I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm just trying to rationalize it because so far technology seems involved.
Fiery cherubim, what you said just makes a lot of sense. I needed help with that, and you helped me. Because that could be other anomalies that the stars were everything to them in a way, so they're just, the cherubim is a way to this angelic star or whatever.
Right. He's never seen a star up close. Yep. So, okay, and then right after that it says, and their heaven was clear as water. It says, a flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portals blazed with fire, and I entered into the house, and it was hot as fire and cold as ice. There were no delight of life therein. Fear covered me, and trembling got hold upon me, and I quaked and trembled. I fell upon my face, and, okay, let's just stop right there. A flaming fire surrounded the walls, and its portal blazed with fire, and I entered into the house.
Hot as fire and cold as ice.
When he was brought up to this wall, and then he walked in through the fiery tongue, I kind of see that as him going into the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just talked about one room in the spaceship with the dome top and the crystal tiled floor. Now it seems like he's going into another one because it says a flaming fire surrounded the walls and its portals blazed with fire, and I entered into that house. Boy, this is kind of confusing.
That sounds like a gateway or a portal to me. Would be wild to go through a portal. I'm not sure that it would be like this verbiage would explain like how it could be everything. It was both hot and it was cold. There's going through a portal would be quite the physical, intense situation.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of interesting is he went in there and there were no delights of life. Right? To me, it sounds like there were no human comforts. Like there were no comfortable chairs. There was nothing to show the sign of any people living there.
Yeah.
Like an empty room, or maybe it's like a particular room in the spaceship that just is pure engineering.
What if it was a
pure utility?
A room that he was in temporarily, and it was made of materials of alloys and steel, and the touch of that on his feet or whatever was inherently cold, but the room itself was like it was heated with fire.
Maybe he was going through, what's that called when they want to clean somebody before they go into a room?
Yeah.
What is that?
Under something there.
Yeah, what is that
That can be
called?
like that.
Comment that down below.
Yeah.
But what is it?
Decontamination?
Yeah, like a decontamination room.
Yep.
Because here they are bringing this human
That's very plausible.
into the spaceship, and they don't want bacteria or whatever else is on this.
Similar to what a decontamination room would be like, that description.
It could be that he was hit with some sort of intense heat and then like washed with like water or something, like, who knows?
He got scrubbed.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think an intense scrubbing,
Yep.
I don't know, man. Could feel hot, could feel cold. And then he kind of loses his shit there. Like, he freaks out. So let's get back to that real quick. Yeah, because it says, and I quaked and I trembled and I fell on my face. So he like got really scared and his body is like shaking. And then extreme fear.
He thought he was in almost like a prison or, like a cave, and he was going to be stuck there forever or something. It's like,
I think he had no idea at all what was going on because he has no reference point for this type of thing, that he was kind of losing his shit. He was like, what is happening right now?
Put yourself in his shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally been abducted by a cloud.
Right, yeah. Showing things he's never seen in his life that he can't possibly describe, Mm-hmm. And he's losing his shit. He's freaking out. We've all been in a situation where we've freaked out, dude, and lost it, and he's in that right now. And of course you would be.
Your heart would be just pounding. You would be just in a state of shock.
You'd be losing your shit.
I'd be losing my shit. I might piss myself. I mean, this is...
Yeah, exactly. Good God. And it says, okay, so right after that it says, and I beheld a vision. So losing his mind, freaking out, goes right into another vision. And it says, and lo, there was a second house greater than the former, and the entire portal stood open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. These portals always seem to be flames of fire. And in every respect, it so excelled in splendor and magnificence and extent that I cannot describe to you its splendor and its extent. Okay, so whatever this was, it was so absolutely amazing to him. He literally doesn't have the words to describe it.
That's so real right there.
Yeah.
Right? Like something that you can't explain. That's kind of rare.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff of these prophetic visions and for him to have the humility to just say, I just can't even explain.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's kind of powerful.
That is powerful, yeah. It's almost like I don't know, man. It just, to me, it just almost seems like evidence that he's in something he's never seen before, dude. It just really seems like some sort of ship. Okay, so he sees something so magnificent, he just can't even describe it. And its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings and the path of stars, and its ceiling also was flaming fire. And all right, let's just hold up right there. So its floor was of fire, and above it were lightnings and the path of stars, and its ceiling was also flaming fire.
Which could be just imagery or, could be a lot of things. If you've never seen a video display or...
Okay, hang on. So let's start with the floor. So the floor is a fire, and above it were lightings. Well, he says lightnings, but I'm going to say lighting.
Yeah.
And the path of stars. So this is just right above the floor. So he's saying the floor is a fire. So the floor is illuminated, and just above it, and he again says lightnings and path of stars.
What comes to my mind is some sort of holographic image of maybe the solar system or something, or, they're a map. Could be a map.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. So this is the second time he's used that exact same verbiage to describe something. Before it was the ceiling. Now it's the floors. I think this is just lighting.
At this point, the only lighting that Enoch has ever seen is either the sun or a fire of some sort.
Right.
So seeing spaceship lighting would be mind-blowing.
He calls that path of stars and lightning.
Yeah.
Because whatever it was, so before when we considered the path of stars and the lightning to be traveling through space, I don't think it was.
Possibly not.
Yeah, because he's using the exact same description here.
And if you were to describe it, stars would be, because it would be similar to stars in the sky.
Shooting,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And we've all seen that movie of a spaceship where there's a light that for no apparent reason that we know of is traveling, you know? It looks like a circuit.
Yep.
I really feel like that's what he's looking at. The wild thing is we're basing this off of what we know and he's basing it off of what he knows.
Yeah.
Right? So
It makes it very interesting, though.
Yeah, definitely. And then he also, didn't he say that, what did he say about the ceiling in that one? And its ceiling was flaming fire. Floor was of fire and the ceiling was flaming fire. So I don't know if that just means the ceiling was lit.
A lot of light. It could be just a lot of light.
Or maybe it's a force field of some sort.
Modern day lighting would blow somebody who lives in a tent away.
Yeah.
You'd be blown away with modern day lighting.
That's true. And I would assume God has some of the best. Okay, and then it says, and I looked and saw therein a lofty throne. Its appearance was of crystal, and the wheels therefore as a shining sun. So it was crystal with very bright wheels. And there was a vision of cherubim. And from the underneath of the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. So again, such a bright light, he can't even look. I really feel like he's using fire in place of light.
Yeah. And the throne is like a seat, right?
Yeah, we would refer to a throne as a seat.
So it's like a lighted captain's chair.
Yeah.
Very modern, lighted, lots of controls on it, but brighter,
transparent.
So bright he couldn't look at it. That part of it's a little strange.
Yeah, and it says, and from underneath the throne came streams of flaming fire, so that I could not look thereon. The other thing, it talks about wheels. It almost seems like it's a throne made of crystal, and it says wheels thereof as shining sun. So it almost seems like it's a throne made of crystal with ring lights around it.
It could be the system, the engine of this spaceship. It's warp drive.
Could be, but maybe. I guess I'm taking him when he says throne that he sees a seat.
Yeah. But maybe it's just the size of a throne and that he's using the word throne to describe relatively what it looks like in size.
I would hope he would know that a throne's a seat.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't use the term seat if it's not a seat. Because he could use so many other things. He could say carriage. He could say, any other thing that size. I don't think he's talking about an engine, dude. What engines do you know that are...
I just wonder why it was so bright. Why is it so bright that you can barely look at it?
Well, there's something coming underneath of it, right? Like at the bottom of the chair, like say it is an actual throne. Something at the bottom of the chair is just radiating magnificent light.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Let's keep going. Maybe it gives us more clues as to what exactly this thing is.
Yeah.
And the great glory sat thereon, and his remnant shone more brightly than the sun, and was whiter than any snow. None of the angels could enter and could behold his face by reason. So it sounds like, okay, let me finish that. So could behold his face by reason of the magnificence and glory, and no flesh could behold him. The flaming fire was round about him, and a great fire stood before him, and none around could draw near him. 10,000 times stood before him, yet he needed no counselor, and the most holy one. So is this God?
Possibly.
Yeah, because the Lord called him.
I get the feeling that, it's like when you hear these stories of people visiting the afterlife where you're just kind of starting to receive this download and no words need to be said that much. And the presence is so intense and incredible, like everything's said in milliseconds, like time itself is warped at this point 10,000 times stood before him. Like what he's saying there is a simple version would be like either time stopped or he's somehow absorbing this vast expanse of time in the matter of milliseconds.
Yeah.
That's what I feel.
Okay.
Those words are relaying.
Okay, good, because I had zero explanation for that. So he described the throne of God, and now he's describing God sitting on the throne.
Could you even be in the presence of God? I mean, that's, whew.
I suppose if God was going to allow you to be.
I guess at that point, being close to that much of the power of love would settle you down a little bit and put you at ease. He was in a high state of fear. And that statement also, he's relaying some sort of comfort. Not directly saying is comfortable, but I feel more comfort at that point.
Yeah, he probably did, because the next chapter is God actually talking to him and telling him almost immediately, fear not.
That's why I say that afterlife kind of experience
Yeah.
of overwhelming love and comfort, and then being able to just feel everything without words.
The other interesting thing is that, it says the angels could not look at him, and then they had it. Basically, the end of this is holy ones walk him to God, and then they have a conversation. But this is, this is God's spaceship, made of crystal with awesome lighting. And I don't even know what to make of it, man.
What's the overall purpose of this?
God shows him many different ways, like how a lot of things in the universe work. And then God gives him a message to take back to those 200 angels. That really seems to be the purpose, is God wants Enoch to take this message to these 200 angels, because during this vision, if we were to go on, Enoch is shown a jail that's prepared for these angels.
Okay, yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, and God basically says, you will never come back to heaven. To give him this message, you will never come back to heaven. You will be down here till the end of time or for eternity. And then eventually, after Revelations happens, they're thrown into the lake of fire. Yeah, and God wants him to give him that message.
Yeah.
Enoch, go tell these fallen angels that they're screwed now. And they're never going to make it back. And that mistake they made was the biggest mistake they're ever going to make or have ever made. And it's over for them.
For some reason, the way God works, he wants a human Enoch to give them that message.
I've heard an interpretation of this. So angels are kind of like above people. And for this particular group of angels, God wanted a person who was below angels to let them know, as a kind of almost like a sign. Like if I were to do something like this, it would be like kind of almost rubbing it into their face. That is lesser than you is telling you that you are now fake.
And that's the moment they start to realize they're screwed.
Yeah.
Delivered by a simple human.
It also said in there, when God called him forward, he said, fear not, for you are righteous. It's kind of cool because Enoch is one of two people to ever be taken into heaven without dying.
There must be something about Enoch that God really liked.
Yeah, well, he was righteous. He was probably a man of God. He always did the right thing, right? He always tuned into the stream that God is putting out of righteousness and that which is good and holy.
And he's a powerful figure. He's the father of Noah.
He is a powerful figure.
Right.
And lineage does seem to kind of come into play with the Bible.
Especially when it's way, way back and there's so little actual lineage. When the lineage is that small, there are some very, very large roles that are taken.
That's interesting because he's the lineage of Noah, and Noah's DNA is the only human DNA saved after the flood. So for some reason or another, their lineage is extremely important. It's probably because they were righteous and holy throughout the generations.
Yeah.
Because that would be a special lineage.
It's almost like breeding horses when you get a stallion.
If you want the most badass of horses, you pick the stallions. If you want the best of humans, you pick the most righteous and holy.
That's just logic.
Okay, but here's a question. Why are one thing that's kind of always freaked me out a little bit about the Bible is people are always referred to as animals. Like they are the shepherd and we are the sheep. We keep animals around because they have a use for us. With sheep, it's food and it's wool and maybe milk. but there's always something that they're doing for us, which is a reason to have them.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that's always kind of freaked me out a little bit.
I like where you're going with that because that is so true.
Yeah. It's
There's
always
something we're providing
that they liked.
that they like. Wow.
I mean, we would love to think that it's because we're just so special and unique. Wouldn't that just be glorious
Yeah.
and wonderful? But the reality of the situation is there's something there, like whether it is as simple as a pet, you know, you love your pet, you care for your pet, or there is some other use that we don't know yet. Because the other thing that freaks me out,
Something is being harvested from us.
yes,
Ew.
yeah.
Makes me uncomfortable.
Now, of course, we can only relate to it as simple little human beings.
Uh-huh.
We are not God. We don't know the ultimate purpose and the plan and the reason for everything. But that line of thinking has always stuck with me for a long time and always kind of freaked me out a little bit.
What could those things be? Maybe it's just an experiment in alchemy of breeding and getting the alchemy correct. And when the alchemy is correct, the byproduct could be spiritual warfare victories. It could be love, but it could be something even darker. I don't know. That's why it's unsettling. That's unsettling.
Yeah, I'll just straight up say this because I've been thinking about this for a long time. What if the righteous souls are the most tasty?
Oh, gosh. Sure it is.
And the perverted souls are like the bad ones. Like they're moldy, they're gross. Don't need anything to do with those. Get rid of those. Into the lake of fire they go. Burn them.
That's kind of valid what you're saying there.
Because we
When you said that, what I thought of is the breaking of the bread and the references of Jesus to, you know, when you drink the wine, you drink my blood. But I think it's something that we can't. There's no words to describe what that harvesting of us is.
Yeah.
The harvesting of the righteous.
right.
It's a concept that we're just not built to really fully.
I hope so.
I hope so too. But your line of thinking there, I think, is pretty close, very close to the actual reality. Just the details of what that harvesting is I'm not sure we can comprehend it fully.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a weird world. Like when you dive into the realm of spirituality and God and just these crazy visions and cherubims and all these other divinely created, like the whole order of all of the beings of heaven. It's so wild. It's like the greatest fantasy story of all time.
I mean, really, you could sum this up and maybe we're the product of continual eternity of light as opposed to darkness. And so we're producers of light in a way, and not entropy and death and darkness, but of light, of continuation and somehow.
What do you mean? Like, can you push that a little further?
So you're breeding a stallion and the lineage, and you're trying to create life that is righteous and loving, takes care of each other. In that positivity can live infinitely and purely like a light. Whereas we know the other side of the token of darkness and death and torment and fear and deceit and all these perversions that lead to death. And God understands the human condition and how difficult it is and how much of a sacrifice that is. And he needs stallions that can survive that.
So be a stallion. What a tough thought exercise, dude.
That one got deep there for a second. That was good. I like where you took us on that. I get into the thoughts of divine design, and I had this thought the other day, with the solar system, and we're traveling, the Milky Way galaxy is traveling like, 200,000 miles an hour. I think it's faster than that, actually.
Yeah, I think it's 450,000 miles per hour.
The Earth is, but the Milky Way galaxy is also traveling at even higher speed. And then we're traveling at 400,000 miles an hour within it.
Okay.
And I just have this thought that, and it's all designed, right? It's all divine design. And our whole solar system is sort of a spaceship, almost. And we are traveling at a high rate of speed through this huge darkness, right on the edge of the viability of life. And we're going somewhere eventually. He's created this sphere.
Like the whole Milky Way galaxy and us flying through the universe.
Hundreds of thousands of miles an hour.
Is a designed method to go from one point to the other.
Yes, I feel like that.
That kind of, for me, helps make sense a little bit of referring to us as sheep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At that point, it's almost like we are, like the human DNA, the human population, whatever has to do with us, is the product on a semi going from one place to the next.
Yeah.
And he's got to get it to a certain spot for whatever reason.
We got a shelf life.
And he comes and visits every once in a while in his spaceship. And he sent, okay, this is kind of clearing a lot of things up, actually, because I always wondered, why does God need to send angels down if he's omnipresent, right? What does he have to send these 200 watchers down to watch humanity and guide humanity through time to try to keep them on the right path? And of course, they betray God and instead have sex with the girls and teach them helpful things for them, but also things that can lead to destruction, like death, makeup, witchcraft, exactly, yeah, sorcery. And then God hears about it, comes in, says, there's my Enoch right there. That's my guy. That's the most important one, because that's the most valuable one for whatever, for this product I need to get over there. Comes down, pulls him up.
Yeah.
And is like, hey, tell these 200 angels they're finished.
Mm-hmm.
They're fired. And, okay.
And he goes into this decontamination room and probably his DNA gets mapped. This is, where going forward, your son Noah is going to survive the flood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe when he was pulled in.
Yeah. During that whole experience,
closer look.
Really what that was, he was abducting a stallion from the surfaces of Earth.
Because when God shows up at that point, he already knows that the angel DNA is mixed with the human DNA, essentially souring it, ruining it, and he needs to clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
And Enoch's the right DNA, because he's like the grandfather or the great-grandfather of Noah, who's the only human being to survive the flood aside from his wife and his children. And that's how he cleans it up.
I feel like we're nailing this Enoch story.
Boy, this is really interesting.
Like in real time here, just talking it out.
Yeah.
And just reading that and the description of Enoch's experience, which is sort of vague and strange, but it also has enough detail in there for us to get to where we are now.
Yeah, try to make some sort of sense of it.
And the good thing about that is we are the byproduct of these stallions. That's something positive.
True.
We've had a lot of generations, and
There's been some souring.
there's been some souring, absolutely,
Yeah.
which explains why Revelations happens.
The final cleansing. That's what Revelations is.
Yeah.
The final cleansing before delivery. It's just like, so I have a dog, and I ordered my dog online. Just Shiba Inu, I couldn't find one in my city. So I went online and I ordered him. And they brought him they brought him to me from Montana, I'm pretty sure. And when they got to my town, they gave him a bath. Right? And so they have like a big van. They groomed him real quick, cleaned him up, and then brought him to me and delivered him.
Yeah.
Revelations is the version of that.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever our ultimate delivery is, right after Revelation.
Yeah.
Where are we going, bro? Where are we headed?
I hope I get there.
There's no way to put a cap on this.
Makes me want to think about behaving myself more, being like what Enoch must have been, like Noah must have been, like.
Well, we can all tune in to that God frequency. You can. Look, I've done it in my life. For me, it was a matter of reading the Bible on a regular basis, going to church, and also being around people who were seeking that same thing. And I tell you, man, there were nights when I was so tired and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. But I swear there was an entity in my room that was like shaking, not actually, but like, this is all metaphorically, okay? But like pressing on my body and shaking it and being like, no, you can't sleep until you read the Bible. Read the Bible and then you can go to sleep. And then I would ultimately be like, okay, fine. I'll just read the Bible. And I would pick it up and I would read a few chapters and I would say, is that enough? And it would be like yes or no. And if it was no, it wanted me to keep reading. And if it said yes, I felt the peace and I could go to sleep.
For me, the times in my life that I think that I've been closest and spiritually correct and spiritually strong was moments in my life where I wasn't in debt and I had time on my hands, you know, like not being a slave, and I had enough time on my hands, and I went and I gave myself freely to help people, you know. So giving myself freely and giving love and helping people that were in rough times and help them get out of those rough times, that's when personally that I feel
The peace or what?
that my spiritual, my closest to God, conversations with God were there, and they were stronger. And then also I was happier as an individual, and I had clarity like I'd never had before in those moments where I was out there helping people and not expecting anything in return, essentially.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's like multiple ways of going about it.
And for each person, I think it's a little different.
Have you ever tried reading the Bible on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, I got the ADD. I'd have to read passages 3 or 4 times, and but
Yeah, you do. I also had to do that.
yeah. So I struggle reading. Reading is a struggle for me. But I'm a consumer of knowledge, and I love knowledge and biblical knowledge. So I spend a lot of time, you know, not literally reading as much as I should probably, but I'm immersed in knowledge and spiritual knowledge.
I do that too. I listen to a lot of sermons and stuff, like on a daily basis.
And church is a wonderful experience. And that fellowship is another aspect of things
Right, yeah.
that's very important. And helping out, like I say, where you're giving yourself freely to help your fellow brother, that's fellowship.
Right.
Even on a higher level in a way. And this is what the things about these, we're in a debt society. The Western civilizations now are debt-based society. There's very few people that break free of the debt. And if you are in debt, you literally are enslaved. You cannot help others.
Yeah, the wild part about that is every dollar that's printed is from debt. Our money is literally just debt.
Yeah.
which is kind of sick in a way.
Was very sick.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't talk about this, being enslaved to debt and what that does to a society, but it's really bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as bad as it can get.
Put you in a very controlled, like you are controlled by something else.
You might as well be the Israelites in Egypt building pyramids, hauling stones around.
Oh, the Israelites in Egypt
Yeah.
building. Okay. Fortunately, I'm not in much debt today, if any at all.
You're so much more of a complete person if you're not indebted.
I think it does make a big difference. One thing I noticed when money was tighter, and then when all of a sudden money was not tight at all, I was able to think way better. And it made me realize that like a lot of people are so consumed with their lives, meaning like they're so consumed with their job because they got bills to pay, they got to pay the mortgage, their car broke down, oh my God, where am I going to get this $1,000 to fix it? My kids need football equipment, they need food, clothing, all of this, right? You get so bogged down with all of that, it's hard to kind of take a step back and actually look at how things are set up in life.
It's debilitating.
But if you can get to the point where all that is less of a worry, there is some sort of weird like freedom that comes with that.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
it's absolutely freedom.
And a different way of thinking. Okay, well, let's wrap this thing up. Final thoughts?
I feel better about this whole thing. You know, I started on this kind of like this uneasiness about the Watchers doing these perverse things and messing up Earth. And after our long conversation here and this research, we kind of worked through it, and I can see a system there. You know, I see a system now that bad things have to happen in order for ultimately things to be right. It's like the yin and yang. There has to be bad. There has to be growth in order to get to the ultimate.
I'm pretty much just mind blown, and still a little worried that I'm just food. But like, I'm sure everything will be okay.
Maybe you're good food though.
Yeah, but dude, what happens to food?
Like a ribeye, you know, like you're just like deliciously cooked ribeye.
How does the ribeye feel about that?
Putting a smile on God's face.
Hang on. How does the ribeye feel about that?
I mean, the cow has a pretty good life, right? I mean, they don't have jobs and stress and divorces, and you know, they have a pretty sweet life. The sheep have a pretty great life.
I feel like if I were to fill the cow in that's on the prairie, what's coming to him and why, he might be like, wait a minute, fuck that. This is bullshit.
Mm-hmm. The human condition is a difficult ride, to say the least.
No doubt about it.
The whole thing.
He might not be food. That was just a random thought anyways.
We come out of the womb screaming bloody murder. And the fact that we, despite of that human condition, when we conquer it with love and with the right things and bring in that light, God smiles.
Because it's going to make us more tasty.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah, tasty.
Yeah. And he appreciates it. Just like I appreciate that cow that turned into an amazing ribeye steak.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was trying to say, because I know you love ribeyes and I do too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was trying to help you with, since you seem to be struggling with this.
Worst comes to worst, we are just more sustenance for life.
Yeah.
Which isn't so bad.
It's not so bad, no.
At least we're that.
Try to enjoy the little things.
Alrighty, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Flicker Podcast. Let me know what you thought about all that. We definitely went over some crazy topics and ideas. Where do you weigh in on everything? Is the Milky Way a giant spaceship? Are we a product to be delivered somewhere else, not knowing for what that reason may be? So leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you thought, and we'll see you in the next one.